Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for like a quickie review video where I talk about some songs and albums that I've been meaning to touch down on but haven't yet. Video thing. Let's do it. First, Swedish post-punk act Holograms have a new track out called Flesh and Bone. New LP on the way on Captured Tracks. The track is great. Way more layered and detailed than some of the stuff on their debut LP, which I also thought was really good. It's a solid track. Loved it. Also, the Connecticut indie rock and emo band The World is a Beautiful Place and I Am No Longer Afraid to Die has a new track out called Beverly, Wyatt. You can stream it on our website, theneedledrop.com. It is one of 4 tracks on a 4-way split coming out soon on Top Shelf Records and Run for Cover Records, which also features Code Orange Kids, Tiger's Jaw, as well as Self Defense Family. Also, Mississippi rapper Big K.R.I.T has a new mixtape out called King Remembered in Time. Download it. That's all I gotta say. Scottish experimental hip-hop outfit Young Fathers have announced their second full-length LP on Anticon Records already, but they have dropped another track from it called I Heard. The release date is now set in June for the record, and while this track is not necessarily a straightforward hip-hop type ordeal, it is actually a very sort of pretty moving ballad, though very reverbed and distant. Electronic music duo Tonight has a new track out called Acrylics, and it's a banger! Maybe not their best and most eccentric thus far, but it does hit hard. And another thing that hits hard, the new Queens of the Stone Age track, My God is the Sun, oh my God! Josh Homme, home, The guitar leads at the opening of this thing are like totally Mars Volta-esque, and once the riff kicks in, it's just, ooh, and the hook on this thing, My God is the Sun. It's pretty epic, blood pumping. You know what, there are a ton of tracks and stuff that came out this week. The new Jay-Z track, National came out with some new songs as well. I'm just gonna shove it all down there in the description box. It's all going in the description box. Let's get into albums. The new Black Angels LP, Indigo, Meadow, these guys are a few albums deep at this point on this new album. They're kind of a garage, psychedelic rock, revivalist outfit. A huge throwback, and they tend to, on this record and a lot of their records, sort of sit in the more eerie side of this genre, and I do like that. The mix on this thing is heavy as hell. The vocals are pretty solid. These guys definitely know their way around a hook as well. The band is good at tastefully recreating a lot of old classic rock tropes from groups like The Doors, some early Pink Floyd stuff as well. These guys are certainly preservationists to the highest degree. I can't exactly call this album exciting or adventurous or anything like that in my opinion. Though, you know, still well recorded, solid. If you're into this kind of genre, you're a diehard for it, give it a listen. The new Wire LP, Change Becomes Us. This is the latest full-length album from classic art rock post-punk outfit Wire. Actually an interesting release for longtime fans, collectors, just nerds for this sort of genre, because the band is recording what was, I guess at the time, sort of unreleased or really sort of unrecorded material from the late 70s and early 80s. So there are quite a few tracks on this record that do sound like Chairs Missing and 154 era Wire. And certainly the vibe of Wire's early 80s era stuff comes through really strong with some danceable post-punk beats, synthesizers, but continually Wire with their newest releases just aren't really impressing me that much when it comes to Colin Newman's vocals, which to me just don't feel as passionate or as thrilling as they used to. And on another album, the band returns to this very boomy, compressed, suffocating kind of production that in a lot of ways complements their louder and more aggressive tracks on this album and other albums that they have put out recently. But when it comes to the slower and more delicate tracks, I would say it is not just feeling or sounding all that great. The new CHVRCHES EP, Recover, the Recover EP. These guys are a synth pop project with an indie flair, mostly getting a ton of hype right now off of a hit single that is actually titled after this EP, Recover, which is a fantastically written track really sharp hook, very sweet female vocals, nice melody on this thing. I love the glistening atmospheric production, but the beefy bass on this thing as well. It's just got a lot of texture and is incredibly hooky. That song is so good, it's worth getting it out on an EP or a single or anything ASAP. But as far as the other songs on this thing, you have some remixes and a couple other originals. The second track on here, which sort of has a male lead vocal, feels much less enthralling than the vocal delivery that was sort of given to us on the first track. It's just, to me, in my opinion, way less passionate, way less engaging. It feels almost sort of lethargic in comparison to the vocal that we're hearing on the first track. And the third original that we're getting on this EP, which wasn't bad by any stretch, but was really sort of drowned out in 80s nostalgia, which to me was a bit of a disappointment, considering what I think is so great about the song Recover is that it sounds so futuristic in a way. Tera Melos, X'd Out. These guys are a math rock, indie rock outfit. Their third full-length album right here. I've never really been the biggest fan of them. However, on their last full-length LP, I did find the playing to be so impressive that, of course, it would have been worth it to at least check out this new album and see if they were, I guess, sort of writing songs in a way that would click with me a little bit more. And of course, the very tight guitars and drums that are typically on a Tera Melos LP are here. Maybe feeling a little bit more straightforward at times, maybe sort of going for something a bit more driving and kind of, I guess, straight and to the point. I actually found some of the guitar playing on this album to be a little more groove oriented and obvious and kind of gutsy, which was a cool thing. I just ended up being disappointed by a couple different things though. The vocals on many of these tracks were just almost completely inaudible, or when I could hear them, they felt so lifeless and just lacking in passion that I really saw no reason for them to be there. And I just didn't really care for the mix on this thing either. The drums felt so distant when I thought they could have given the record just a little bit more punch. And the guitars on this thing are blaring just so brightly and so aggressively that it was like almost kind of sort of giving me a headache. And I like lightning bolt. Still, I like the fact that the band can pump out these flashy grooves, and even though they may be technical and maybe different, they play them so naturally, just vibes really well. But in terms of the vocals, the recording on this thing, and just a lot of the songwriting, I'm still not a huge Tera Melos fan. And the new Depeche Mode LP, Delta Machine. And pretty much on this record, and I actually have to say I'm pretty happy to see new records come out from some of my favorite bands in synth pop and new wave just of all time, all in 1 year. New Order, Depeche Mode, OMD as well. And I think this record, basically Depeche Mode comes through and proves that they're still capable songwriters, capable song producers. The sound of this thing is very modern, and yet the band does a fantastic job of just sort of recapturing that vintage synth pop sound when things felt so cold and robotic, and the only thing you were going to get humanity from in the music was the vocals, which of course still have that Depeche Mode very sort of moody mood to them. There's some really great ballads on this LP too, like the song Heaven. However, some of the more upbeat and punchier tracks on this record, I just felt like I could sort of take or leave a lot of them. By no means is this record sort of revolutionary or anything. Like I said, it pretty much proves that the band is just still capable at making their sound work in the modern age, I guess you could say. And those are the records and songs that I sort of wanted to talk about this week. Thanks for watching. Anthony Fantano, albums, quickies, forever.